And I'm Patrick Zabala. I'm the Partner Alliance Officer for Arizona Central Credit Union. So let's get started here. So the first thing that I'll say is it's really nice to keep your goals clear and simple. Something like retiring by 60 years of age, or maybe you want to buy a second home, like a vacation home, or maybe it's something a little bit more like you want to start a winery in 20 years. If you make short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals, then you can kind of choose your definition of the three different ones. But what I usually say is short-term is within 6 months. I would say medium-term is about 1 to 5 years, and then with long-term being more than 5 years. And another thing is you can use compound interest to get you to your goals a lot faster. Compound interest grows at a faster rate than simple interest because in addition to earning returns on the money that you save, you're also earning returns on those returns kind of at the end of the compounding period. So depending on the type of account that you have, maybe it'll compound daily, monthly, or quarterly, and you can always check on those accounts. For instance, like a certificate of deposit or a CD is usually quarterly compounding, whereas a savings account is usually on a monthly basis, just as some examples. So let's get started on what you own. And I'm actually going to flip to the budget handout that was attached to this Zoom event here. So let me flip on over to that. And I'll scroll down to the what you own. It's just a little bit bigger, so it makes it a little bit easier to take a look at it. So first thing we start with, well, this worksheet right here is actually very, very useful for for helping you to create your budget. So this is what I've started using since there is, we'll talk about using software and things like that. And that's always great, but having some sort of paper version is really good because you'll catch things that you maybe wouldn't have caught clicking around on the software version. And also you have everything like physical form, which to me makes it easier for me when I'm doing my budget. So the first thing we'll take a look at here is quick assets like savings, checking, and money market, mutual funds, stocks, bonds, and the cash value of life insurance. So we would put those in this bucket here. And then we have some more restricted assets. Maybe you're not allowed to touch them for a certain amount of time, such as this one right here, certificate of deposit. Maybe you have like a 3-year CD. And so that's why we put it in the restricted asset bucket. And it's nice to know the maturity date of these things. And again, generally the paper version is the way to do it here, just by putting it in here. The software, I've never seen any budgeting software that allowed me to, figure out when all my maturity dates were. But we come down here to retirement accounts, 401k, IRA, maybe even the current value of a pension, stock options, and annuities. And so we list all these. And then down here in the slow assets, so your house value and equity. I usually put the value over here and then the equity, and then other real estate and business equity to kind of get you to your total here. And so this is an extra step. I mean, this isn't, generally part of a budget, but I really like it because it allows you to see exactly where you're at, instead of just doing just a standard monthly budget. So let me flip back to the presentation here. And we go to the next one, which is what you owe. And let's get maybe I should have stayed on that worksheet. Here we go. So scroll down to what you owe. And so here we list the credit card debts, mortgage, home equity loan, kind of auto loans, student loans, and anything else to get you to your total liabilities. And what you can do is put these buckets here, and then you take your total assets minus your loans, and you come to your net worth. So what that gets us to is the next part here, flipping back to the presentation, which is basic monthly expenses. Sorry, I keep making this a little bit, there we go. I just feel like this is easier to read when I'm actually on the PDF here. So in the basic monthly expenses here, this has really saved how I've created my budget is this worksheet. The two that we covered, I would say those are more optional. They're just, nice to know type of things. But here we come to exactly like a great format for creating a budget. Because as you can see, there's a lot of these little things that, to be honest, I've never included these things in previous budgets before I started using this worksheet, like storage fees for storage containers. I don't have those anymore, but once upon a time, I definitely had some storage fees, and then water, sewer, garbage, cellular. Some of these might be included in your HOA fee, and so you can kind of just lump it into one if it is. But really anything that pertains to your budget, you could put on here to just stay on top of exactly where you're at with that in terms of monthly, because what we're talking about here is basic monthly expenses. And so let's talk about the periodic expenses now. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't know if on your screen it's bigger, but I'm just going to keep flipping here because on mine it's very small. So periodic expenses, I listed auto insurance because you may, if you're paying auto insurance monthly, then you can put it in the other worksheet. But you might be paying it every 3 months or 6, or maybe even you're paying it lump sum a whole year. And so it's nice to have, okay, it's coming out in March, it's a whole year, and to put the dollar figure here. And then auto maintenance, vacations, things that aren't going to be like on a complete monthly basis is what we would list here. And you get your totals and your grand total. And I usually don't do the average, but. So let's talk about spending leaks here. No more flipping back and forth. So finding spending leaks can be as simple as it could be water left running. That could be a spending leak because our water is metered, and so we get charged based on how much we use. Same goes for electricity. So too many lights left on, eating out frequently, or parking tickets, late fees. A lot of these things that can be avoided can become spending leaks. So it's great to find them, and you can see that you can put a lot more money back into your pocket once you've found out what your spending leaks are. And what you can do is you can even put the money into a savings account and save upwards of 3 months salary for the future, like an emergency fund to cover 3 to 6 months worth of bills, depending on where you're comfortable. And that's what I usually like to do once I've found any of my spending leaks. So ones that, a couple that came to mind on mine were subscription services. There were a few that I was using where we were paying for but not really using them. And so I was able to cut out about $45 a month, and I just put that towards trying to build up my emergency fund. And what I usually do is just put it into like a really simple savings account that doesn't have a whole lot of lockups, so that you can kind of access it in an emergency quickly, instead of um, having an account where it's more restricted. And then you can keep track of that progress by watching your savings grow whenever you find and fix a spending leak, and the cycle restarts from there. I usually look for more spending leaks after that. So let's talk about resetting goals here. So if you set a budget and do the worksheets, what I usually do is I'll print them out, and then I'll set a budget. And so once you figure out kind of how much you can save each month, or how much you can save in 6 months or 5 years or 10 years, and you'll know that after doing a budget using those sheets or your own, like if you're using your software, you'll know exactly how much you can save each month. And then you can figure out, okay, so if I can save this much each month, how much can you save in 5 years? And from there, you can adjust your long-term plans accordingly. Having that information is really, really powerful, because adjusting and resetting your goals, maybe the goals were like too lofty, or maybe you were undershooting the goal and say, oh wow, I can actually save a lot more than that. So that's kind of where resetting comes in. And so with setting a weekly allowance is also a good idea here. Once you've kind of paid your fixed expenses, which I would include paying yourself as a fixed expense. And one really good thing is to pay yourself first, which is once you know kind of how much you can save, I would definitely uh, put that towards your allowance that you give yourself, so that you're not coming to the end of the month and then not able to um, pay yourself at that point, right? So that's why paying yourself first is so much more important. um, and so if there's one thing that you take from this presentation, it would definitely, I hope that paying yourself first will be top of mind. So now let's talk about some different ways to save. So saving for the future using multiple savings accounts can work. You can set one up for unexpected expenses like medical bills, or paying down debt. Maybe you have a goal to refinance your mortgage eventually, so you could have like a specific savings account for that purpose. It's also nice if you, depending on where you have your accounts at, it's nice if you can rename the account. So if it's for a down payment for a car, you could literally call the account down payment for car. So whenever you're checking statements or online banking, you know exactly kind of which accounts are for what. Um, but a couple of really good ways that you can save money is bundling insurance with one company, or like we talked about before, if you're paying for insurance monthly, you can try to build up a savings account so that you can start paying for it like a lump sum every 6 months, or maybe even a year. And you can save some money there, because they'll charge you less on the insurance front. Also, right after this, we'll be doing a presentation on credit. And so I'll talk a little bit about that now. If your credit has gone up, if your credit score has gone up, consider taking a look at your cell phone plans, your insurance, and that could be auto, homeowners, renters insurance if you're renting. A lot of those, well, actually, all of those um, are based on credit score when it comes to the rates that they charge. So you may be able to get more favorable terms if if you know that your score has gone up recently. So definitely take a look into that. And then shopping around for insurance and credit products is a really good idea. You might even consider, when you're trying to get out an auto loan, to check at multiple different banks and credit unions to see, where you can get the best rate. And we'll talk about this a little bit in the next presentation, but when you do apply for a certain type of credit product within a 20-day time span, it just counts as one hit to your credit, which I'll explain further in the next one. But I just wanted to let you know, don't worry about, if you go to get an auto loan and you end up shopping around for credit, it'll count as one inquiry hit to your credit. So, and then coupons, can really help a lot at the store, or even things like making sure that you're not going into the store hungry is something that helps me a lot. If I'm hungry, then I usually end up not really caring what anything costs. I'm just gonna buy what I can and get out of there. So little things like that are kind of how we can save money and end up with more, with exactly what we have right now, but just ending up with more money at the end. Another big one can be just adjusting the thermostat, using like holiday club accounts to build up your savings can be really good, because then you can separate, if you can separate your if you have specific goals and separate your accounts to match those goals, then you know how close you are. So a quick example, if you had one checking account and one savings account, and your goal was to build up, say, a $4,000 down payment for a new car, if all your money was just lumped up into one savings account, it might be a little bit more challenging for you to see how close you are to your goal for that down payment, because maybe your emergency fund is tied up in that and you don't want to be touching that. And so just having it all lumped up into one can make it so that we're not exactly sure how close we are to our goals. And then the last tip I'll give on kind of great ways to save is starting a change jar can be a really good way to do it. It just gets you, it's again, you're separating your money so that you have a change jar building up on the side that's different from just everything being lumped into like a checking account, for instance. So let's talk about where where our money goes. So we all know coffee is expensive, but for some folks necessary. Like me, I mean, I like coffee just as much as the next person. And of course, you can save money by making your own coffee, or maybe even using the coffee maker at work. And so a lot of times coffee, when you're out and about, tends to be anywhere from $3 to $5. And then making it at home can be anywhere from like 50 cents to $1, or even less, just depending on how you do it. But that's just an example. So in that example, coffee is really like 3 to 4 to 5 times more expensive, or even more, when you're out and about. And so you're kind of paying for that convenience factor. So that's how I like to think about it, is like, okay, do I want to be paying for that convenience factor right now, or do I want to be saving money right now and kind of making these things at home? And that was just one example, but it goes for really anything. Like eating out at places where you're going to be leaving a tip, for instance, versus just getting to go food, or like just getting like eating out in a no tip scenario. You can save money there. Or of course, the least expensive way is to make the money at home, right? Or make the food at home. So if you bring your own lunch to work, as an example, you can save over $1,000 a year from some of the studies that I've seen. And so those are just a couple of examples of kind of where the money goes. So oh yeah, and so yeah, we're here to help with anything that you may need. We have access to the branch has access to these worksheets as well. I've given it over to the West Street branch and our Woodlands Village Boulevard branch as well. So if you ever need help with kind of figuring out a budget scenario, or trying to get a savings account, you can rename it and things like that with us as well. So we can always help with anything. But I think I would like to start the Q&A for the budget portion of this here. I'm going to check the chat real quick.
Thank you, Patrick. I have